Hey Kay, thank you so much for joining us in this conversation today with Humans of Developer DAO. In this podcast, we love to pass the mic over to you for you to introduce yourself and tell a little bit about your story before we dive into the questions. So I'll pass the mic over to you.
Okay. Greetings. Thank you for having me. Yeah. Sorry, my cat.
Anyways,
um, yeah. So basically, I'm telling you what I'm doing.
yeah,
Is this
like
right?
just if you want to introduce yourself, as well as all the things you've been doing, you're actively doing within it, outside of the DAO itself, or just who you are. We'd love to learn just a little bit more about you.
Yeah. So yeah, basically, I'm a writer, technical writer. I started as a developer, studied computer science, wanted to make video games, such things, yeah. And yeah, then I got into software development and worked there for like 10 years. And one day I started doing blog posts for a New Year's resolution, basically. It was like, um, I kind of write a blog post every week, and I always saw these people who are like, I have to blog more, and they never did. And then they write two blog posts, and I was like, yeah, that will be the same with me. I will write two blog posts, and I don't even like writing. I didn't even know why I started with that. I was really bad in everything in school that has to do with writing, and yeah, so I started this and it worked pretty well. I wrote one article every week for a year or so, and then a company came to me and said, hey Kay, your articles are pretty good, don't you want to write articles for us? We will pay you for it. And I was like, you can make money by writing? Yeah. So like, writing code, that's real work, and writing articles, that's, I'm playing around with technology for fun, and then I write an article about it, and people are like, oh, this is pretty good and we want to pay you for it. So it didn't really feel like work. But yeah, few years later, I made most of my money with it, and yeah, that's how I got into the whole writing thing. Then I had a bit bigger ambitions and started a course, an educational course for React developers, and wrote them online. And it worked out pretty well because it was like, you don't have to install anything. You just can start this, start coding, start learning, and get into React pretty quickly without all the tooling that you need. And yeah, and then a company approached me about this course, and it got pretty much yeah, pretty many stars on GitHub, and they were like, we want to write a book with you. And then I wrote this book about this course, which was basically the course with some more text and a few extra lessons in the end. Yeah, and it sold pretty well. So that was the point when I thought, well, maybe this writing thing is something I should do more. Yeah, I mean, I still like developing, and I do it. I even did a real project a few years ago, 1 year ago, about a library for Next.js authentication. Which felt pretty nice, to get back into the nitty gritty of finding bugs and writing unit tests and everything like that. Yeah, but pretty much the writing was the thing I stick to, and yeah, I got more and more clients that wanted me to write for them, and yeah, now I have a bunch of clients that give me regular articles, or want regular articles from me, and yeah, that works pretty well. Yeah.
That's really sweet to hear. It's awesome to hear that you started off writing for fun
Hmm?
and started to
I
now.
still do. I still
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
Okay, sweet. Nice. So okay, so I'd love to ask when you started writing, and technical writing is one of those things that comes, I would say, comes with practice of making them better and better every time. Did you end up finding yourself in a niche of like focusing on one thing, or are you trying to explore a lot of different technologies when it comes to the way you've been writing?
Different technologies, really, because what I noticed was that I get bored pretty quickly of many things. Which was the reason why I started self-employment in the first place. You know, I was self-employed as a developer, and then I transitioned while I was self-employed into writing, which is pretty easy when you're self-employed, you know. But the thing was, when I was employed at a company and I had to go there 40 hours a week, and I had to do every stuff the salespeople want me to do, like, oh, this button needs to be more on the left, and we need this, and this is too slow, and it was really daunting. You know, I already inherited an old code base, yeah, that was really bad, yeah, with like a PHP file that was like 10,000 lines of code in one file. You know, the debugger constantly blew up when I loaded this file. So it wasn't really fun to work in this kind of environment. And I learned, yeah, I need new things. I need to do different stuff. And then I got self-employed, and then I started with web development, and then I got into React, and then I got into React Native, because people were like, oh, you can do React, can't you do a React Native project for us? And I did. And yeah, and so I constantly moved on. When I finished a project, it was usually, oh, I learned so much and I can use this for the next project. But when I was finished with the project, it was, oh, it's boring, I want to do something new. So I never got this, you know, this niche stuff, you know, where you get really good with one thing. The only thing I got really good was JavaScript, but only because it's so broadly applicable, you know, like I used it with React. I used it with React Native. Later, I moved into cloud development, DevOps stuff, and I noticed, oh yeah, you can do pretty much anything with JavaScript there too, especially when the whole serverless thing was on rise. And I was like, oh yeah, one of the first languages that were supported with AWS Lambda was JavaScript. So suddenly I could do backend development. And so I got into that, and I started writing about serverless things, because I noticed one of my lucky one of my luck was that when I started writing, I went to a new platform. I didn't go to Medium or something. I went to DevTO. Yeah, like here,
Yeah.
shout out to DevTO. They didn't have many. They had many users, but they weren't so big like Medium back in the days. And when I started writing about JavaScript there, many people came to me, and I was basically the guy who wrote JavaScript articles there, and people loved it. And then I got thousands of followers, and that was a big luck for me. But when I changed to DevOps and stuff, I was like, yeah, well, I don't want to go into something that's already crowded by other people. You know, I was lucky not because I was a super good world-class writer. I was good because I wrote about stuff that other people didn't write on that platform.
Yeah.
So my idea was, well, maybe the serverless thing that is new and fresh, and even some people from the you know, some older developers or more senior developers were like, oh, this isn't real backend development, this is what does it even mean, serverless, and this is bullshit, we don't want to do it, want to have anything to do with it. I want my Kubernetes cluster and be done with it. Yeah. Be done with it. Yeah. And yeah, so I went there pretty early, and worked out pretty okayish, not that good, because I wasn't that into it. It was interesting, the whole backend stuff, but it wasn't something that blew me away, and I was like, oh, I have to do this more and more. But backend stuff is, especially full stack stuff, is paid pretty well, also in writing. So it was yeah, some agencies approached me and were like, oh yeah, we'll write for different startups that want content on their stuff. And yeah, then I got into ghostwriting, and suddenly I was writing like 4 articles a week, and I was like, wow, back in the day when I was writing 1 article a week, it was
Yeah.
much, but now it's like, yeah.
So
And this,
I'd love to
yeah.
ask what's your thought process of like playing with the technology, then deciding you're gonna write an article about it, but then how do you approach the article writing? Because like you said, like doing 4 in a week, I cannot imagine that. It takes me like
Not right now, but there were times at the beginning, it was like, oh, I get paid for 1 article. How long does it take to write an article like off with research and everything, like 4 hours? So, like one article a day isn't the problem. Now it is the problem, and I don't want to do it anymore. I think probably I'll write 1 or 2 articles a week when I'm good, in the mental state and everything.
Yeah.
It's not always easy for me to focus on things. Um, yeah, my thought process depends. When I do articles, ghostwritten articles, people are usually like, oh, we have this topic, we want to push this narrative or something, and then I'm like, okay, I have most of the time I have no idea about the topic. Then I do research, then I decide if is it something I could just throw together an outline and it will be good enough, or is it something that needs me to go deeper, and then I do some deeper research on it. Usually I know one day I had to write an article about Kubernetes, and I was like, okay, I heard this is serious stuff here. And yeah, it took me two weeks to write that article, because I basically did a Kubernetes online course, a video course, bought one, and yeah, I didn't make any money from it, because the learning was so expensive that it basically turned out zero. But I learned to use Kubernetes, and yeah, this was something that took longer. When I do my own stuff, it's basically what do I find interesting, like I go there from some how can I call it, some basic projects, like when you teach people programming, you are like, oh, now we will uh, output stuff, and now we will input stuff, and now we will save stuff, and now we will do interactions, and so on and so on, and you build on that. And that's how I go to the new technology. Like, for example, when I wrote this IPFS article, I was like, okay, in Web3, what do I know from my Web2 experience that I want to use or want to move to Web3, and what do I understand from Web3 already that that is possible? And it was like, okay, IPFS might be something like that. It's simple file storage. It can be accessed over the browser. I know that. I know how to build a web app. I know how to build a progressive web app that is run completely on the client. Now I just upload it to IPFS, and yeah, and use a gateway to access it. And from the client side, nothing has changed. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Even from the developer side, not much has changed, because the tooling is like, okay, do I have to upload it to Amazon Web Services, or do I have to upload it to Filecoin? It's not that much different in the end.
Mhm.
Yeah. So my process is basically finding things I know, or checking out things. How can I move things I know to the new technology, and does it bring any benefits? Yeah.
Mhm.
Like, I know how to write a Node.js application. Does it bring me any benefits to use AWS Lambda, or over a virtual machine? Yeah. So yeah, it removes much of the overhead I had when building such applications. So it's an improvement. Yeah. Same goes for the IPSF or Filecoin stuff. Does it bring me any benefits to move it there? Yeah, it's basically free, so it is a huge benefit. And why not tell people about, hey, you can upload your stuff there, and will be much cheaper, and will still be available. And maybe censorship resistance might be something interesting for people. Yeah, and you get some benefits out that you don't get somewhere else. Yeah. On the other hand, that approach is a bit hard when you go to stuff like blockchains. You know, people are like, oh, I have this NFT project and I'm selling this or that. And I don't 100% get it, you know, like selling art over chain and making big money with it. And the projects are basically built on top of this sharing and this financial products or whatever. And I'm not that deep into financial things in any way. Yeah, I mean, I understand that I can buy and sell stuff with USDC or something, but yeah, I don't understand staking that much and everything. And many of the Web3 projects are built on top of the stuff that Web3 already brings. You know, like people using Ethereum and they want to manage their tokens, and so they build tools to manage these tokens. But that's a problem that comes up with the whole decentralized finance stuff. And it is not a problem that someone who sits at home at their smartphone has usually. Yeah, they are like, oh, I want to upload an image and I want to show it with my friends, and I don't care about the blockchain or anything. Yeah, but then people get their stuff deleted because it's not, it's too pornographic or it's whatever. Yeah, or it's just not good for whatever reason. And then they're like, oh, well, this is probably something I should care about, yeah, because I want to make my to show my stuff to my friends, and I don't want to get it deleted just because someone has some different moral
Yeah.
thinking about it.
No, that makes complete sense. I think I think everything you touched on was so interesting, because when it comes to writing in general or just finding a topic that you find interesting, you have to take so much time to really understand it. But then you personally have to have interest towards it to actually
Yeah,
be able to write it accordingly. So before we even jump into Web3, I want to also touch on your blog and the book that you have.
yeah.
Because that's something which is really incredible. You're an author, so you have to tell us a little bit more about that. Yeah.
A prolific writer, yeah, an accomplished author. No, yeah, the book is pretty old. I think it's called React from Zero, and I wrote it before the hooks came to React, so it's still built with it's still written with class components and everything in mind. I think it could be interesting for many people because of that. What I also did with this book was, back in the days when React came out, they had this JSX stuff happening, and also with JavaScript there came the whole JS ECMAScript 6 stuff, you know, with the no new syntax and everything. And this was at the same different things, yeah, JSX and ECMAScript, but they came at the same time, and people were like, I don't understand what's happening. So I wrote this book without any, or with almost any ES6 things. You know, it was like, I want to use the basic JavaScript people already know from doing JavaScript for years, and I added all the stuff that came from React, but I didn't add new JavaScript features to make it easier to digest. Nowadays, everyone writes ECMAScript 6 or even whatever came after that, and probably uses the hooks instead of the class functions in most cases. So I don't think it's that helpful as it was a few years ago, but there are still things explained that are missing from other books. You know, like it's more like, it's not like we will build this project in 3 weeks kind of book. It's we talk about this concept, and then we talk about this concept, and then we talk about this concept. So it's more a theoretical approach to the whole thing, which can still be interesting for many people. Many people wrote me, they got a job after they read this book, because some questions they got in the interviews, all this, you know, interview questions. So how does React this in the background? And this was something that was in the book. So it helped people to get these jobs just because they knew the answer from the book. They never used it back then later in their programming career, but it helped them to get a foot in the door. Yeah.
That's really the other thing that like I want to ask about too with your blogs and all the writing you've done, and you touched on this just now. Whenever technology advances and moves, because it moves so fast, how do you approach that? Do you end up going back to your articles? Do you kind of put a notice that like, hey, it technology moves fast, like this may not be, something you use today, but is fundamentally important? Like, curious to ask
Well,
about.
sometimes I do, most of the times I don't. It's like when you've written hundreds of articles, it's really hard to keep track of
Yeah.
everything. I do it for some of my articles where I see they still got traction.
Mhm.
Um, you sort this for views and you see, okay, I have like 10 articles that got over 20,000 views. So, and they're still rising. So maybe I should put some notices on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But most of the time I think it's pretty clear that article is from 3 years ago, and yeah, it probably won't be that current anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Sorry, I just have to look after my cat.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, she needed the door.
I love that. She was like, "Hey, open the door right
Yeah,
now."
yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
it's probably just to look in there and see that nothing is there, but yeah.
they go back out. Yeah. Okay, sweet. So then now we have to kind of talk about why Web3. Like, what was the movement for you, especially having played with a variety of different technologies that we have like now in, I guess, Web2, including Kubernetes and like all these different, you know, tools that are so important in this industry, but moving towards a complete new industry. What drove you towards it, especially having or being a like, technical writer as well as a developer?
Um, from a development standpoint, I found it interesting that I can use much of the technology directly from the browser.
Mhm.
I did some for a few years ago, I started some blogging project called Full Stack Front End, where my idea was how much can I do inside the browser that until I get to a limit where I need a backend. How much services are out there that can be used directly in the browser. So I just have to build a React application, upload it to some hosting provider, and sign up for some the Jamstack stuff, like you have your application and you build it with stuff in the backend, without building the backend. The backend is a service in the end. So I noticed this in the whole Web 2 thing that is coming up, and people use it more often. And then yeah, I saw the Web3 stuff being, or the Web3 technology going into a similar direction, but since all this permissionless stuff that is happening, it removes some kind of barrier. Like when I build an application that stores data somewhere in Web 2, I have to build this application. I have to load it up somewhere on a hosting provider. I have to sign up for the storage provider, and I have to give it my credit card information and pay for this. Yeah, so I have to hope that the people in the front pay me so I can pay them. Yeah, and make some money in between. Yeah. But that is removed in Web3 most of the time, not always, but because people, since they have the self-sovereign identity with them, with their wallet and their keys and everything, they can pay for it. Like I can sign up, I can build a sign up for them, and the UI, but I don't handle the sign up. Like there's a service that handles the sign up, and the people sign up with their own account. And when they upload something, like for example, to IPFS with Web3 storage, it's their account. It's not my account, and they store their own data on a decentralized network, and and the app I wrote just does stuff in the browser. It calls HTTP APIs and uses the keys from the wallet to sign everything and make sure it belongs to the right people and everything. This felt to me like another step, like a huge step in the right direction, coming from this whole what can I do in the browser, and and removes a big problem for front-end developers in that case.
Okay, that's really interesting. So then after discovering it from a developer standpoint and seeing all these different things, like I really enjoyed the fact that you did that project. It's my first time hearing that you took the time to see what all that you can do within the front end in the browser. Did you try that with the back end? I'm really curious.
What I can do in the back end?
Did you end
No.
up doing that for the exact project for the back end?
No, I didn't. But back in the days, this was normal. Before JavaScript and everything, it was like you had to render your stuff with Java, PHP, or whatever on the back end, and you had to do everything and then send the finished product. And you had to do anything and send the finished project. So yes, I did it back in the days, but I wouldn't do it now anymore.
No, that makes complete sense. Okay, so then when you're exploring this now with these different like Web3 technology, and you're seeing all the positives from a developer, what makes you want to write and kind of explore that as like a career standpoint?
Because the documentation is shit.
I can agree.
I shouldn't say it so hard. Some is really good, but overall, when I came from documentation, like from AWS or something, there are so many startups in the Web3 space, and they're really smart people, but like zero knowledge proofs and everything like that, and threshold cryptography, and this is really complex stuff, and then they need really intelligent people to build these applications, but those people, they might not be the best to explain them. They understand it themselves, what they build, but it's so complex, they might not have the time, because they have to build features and fix bugs and everything, and they don't have the time to explain this. So I totally get it that there is a need, but yeah, I saw this. I played around and I saw, oh, there's this problem and this, and when you're a writer and write tutorials for a living, it's like you go through the documentation and you type everything down and you try it out and you see, this is missing. Okay, write this down. This is missing. Write this down. And this is a really easy way to write a good article, because you are putting all the stuff in that is missing in the documentation, and then are people like, oh, you wrote about this and this is awesome. It's what's completely missing in the documentation. And yeah, this is something I saw happening quite often with Web3 technology, that it's either very low level right now, at least, because we are early and everything, but so it needs more explanation for the average developer, at least, but it's also much missing, because the people don't have dedicated writers for this, and just let their developers write, or force their developers to write about that, and they don't do a good job because they don't have the time, or they never learned how to explain things to people or something like that.
Yeah, the one question I'm really curious to ask you is, when it comes to all these difficult topics, and Kubernetes is definitely in there, in the same question, and ZK proofs you mentioned, and all these like different new cryptographic technologies that is coming out, how do you approach your or your explanations of simplifying these complex topics, where you have experience educating people, but educating people in such complex topics? Do you have like some sort of technique, or how do you approach it yourself?
I'm not a very smart man. This is my secret. Um, it's like I read it and I don't understand it, and then I read it again and I still don't understand it, and then I search and search and search, and one day I will understand it. For example, I think it took me a few months when I started programming back in the days to understand functions. I think it took me a year or something to understand monads when they were all the hype and everything. And I was like, oh, this seems to be important and I should learn it. And I didn't understand it. So my approach is basically, I don't understand it. So I think I consider myself an average developer. So I expect many other people won't understand it either. Yeah? And I try to write for myself. Like I search for the stuff that I don't understand. When it clicks, when it makes sense to me, then I try to write it down as fast as I can, to capture that moment and capture that insight that I got. Yeah, so like something was missing from me. For example, the cryptography with the elliptic curves and everything, and they were like, oh yeah, what even is a private key, what even is a public key, yeah, like, and then you learn about these functions and the parameters and everything, and suddenly all missing pieces fall together. But it takes really long time because everybody assumes it's just, yeah, it just works. You have this function, you put the stuff in, and then you get your public key. And yeah. So yeah, but basically I try, when I don't understand something, it's you need to find a sweet spot there, because there are things that I don't understand that take so long to understand that I don't have the time to understand them. Yeah, like there are really complex mathematical concepts that take years even for the smartest people to understand, and I don't have the time or the muse to learn all this. Then there's the stuff that's really easy to understand, that's completely uninteresting because people just look at it and they understand it, and you need to find a sweet spot. So what is hard enough that people don't understand it when they read it the first few times, but easy enough that you, when you read it 20 times, because they don't have the 20 times, free time to do this, but you have the time as a writer. When you read it 20 times, you could understand it. And to find that is the art of writing something interesting, I think.
Yeah, no, that's a thank you for your honesty though. Like it made me laugh, but it was like so honest and true, because the writing that I've done, it always goes back to trying to relate to what I'm reading. And there's so much complexity in these technologies that it's like very difficult to understand, because when you're talking to their team from all these cool protocols, they expect you to know it. But it is very new technology and all these different things, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think another part is obviously to take out stuff that is not needed for the point you make at hand. Like usually I program something, I make it pretty and everything, and I like it how it looks. But then I'm done with the article, and I'm like, okay, all the styling code can go out there because it doesn't bring any. I can show it off, I can upload it somewhere and show it off, but I don't have to add it to the code I'm writing about right now to make things more clear. That's the one thing, to get things a bit clearer. But the other thing is, when you I'm approached from many companies to write for them, and they don't come back to me. Many of them, some come back, but many don't come back. And I think one of the issues is, they want someone smart. Like they talk to me and they're like, oh yeah, okay, you do this and that, and we really like this, and then can you do it for us? And I'm like, oh, I have no idea what your technology is about. Yeah, maybe I would understand it. I have to read a bit about it. And some are totally okay with it. And others are like, oh no, this is an imposter. This is an idiot. We shouldn't hire them. But what I think is they don't understand that it's probably a good thing that I don't understand it right away, because there are many people out there that don't understand their stuff. And when I have more time than these people out there to understand this stuff, and I understand it and I can put it in words I understand, and then maybe these other people will also understand. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think there's people are always talking about, oh yeah, it's so easy to get a Web3 job, and you don't have to go to the assessment centers of Amazon and whatever, and you still get paid very well. And I don't think this is 100% true. You know, there are some people from startups in Web3 that approached me that have no idea what they're talking about, and they will hire anyone that can write a single line of code. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they might have enough investment to pay you really good, but those aren't the majority of people. The majority of companies that come to you have really high expectations, because of all this complexity. You know, they work with this stuff every day, they know the complexity, and they don't want to hire anyone that's an idiot, you know. So it's not always that easy to get into this, yeah, and to sell yourself right, you know, like it's not easy to sell someone that it's a good thing that you are not so smart, yeah. So most people back out when they hear this. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's completely fair though. It's like if you like that's a really great way of explaining it, that if you can't really understand their documentation, and they're not giving you the time of day to go through it, then it doesn't make sense for a regular developer to actually understand it as well, right? So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. And now diving into Developer DAO, right? We kind of I want to ask you about all the things you've been involved in, because I know there's a lot and you've been there since, I would say, the beginning, or if you can tell me a little bit
yeah.
more
I
about
think
that.
I joined in September last year or something,
So
end of September.
I think the main thing that I want to ask you about this is what makes you want to keep coming back to the DAO, and yeah.
Hmm. Really hard question because it's such an awful place. Um, well, the gratitude of the people, you know, like much of the work I do isn't visible to the outside. I mean, there is much of the work, also much is visible, but not much of my work, you know. Because many people are coming to me in the DMs, you know, in the direct messages, and they are like, hey, Kay, you know about writing and you know about developer relations and everything. And can you give me some help with this? You know, like, I want to start writing, or I want to get this job and they asked me to write about this or that. How would you approach this? Or such things, you know, like this is probably most of the work I'm doing. And that people come regular to me. Then the next, and they are really thankful for the stuff they do, because they wrote like 10 people already and no one answered. And then there's suddenly someone in this DAO that helps them and really gives them actionable advice. Yeah. And they are really thankful for that. And this is one of the main parts that brings me back there. When you see that it really has an impact what you do, you know, like you're not just doing stuff and doing stuff and doing stuff, and nothing happens and no one reads your articles and no one talks with you and everything. It's when you get some feedback. Yeah, sometimes you get money, sometimes you get appreciation or in some kind of way exposure. Yeah. But when you get some good positive feedback, you come back to it, you know, like that's the main stuff. Then I'm working on the blog most of the time, or much of the time, so writing articles for some things, and editing. Much of the work is editing in the blog. Yeah, that I put the stuff in some kind of form that is more easily digestible for the readers. Yeah, and help people to give them ideas when they want to write something, but they don't know what to write.
Okay, that's cool. Can you tell us a little bit more about the blog as well? As well, like for yourself, getting a chance to be right at the top where you're having to see and edit and kind of make sure everything is polished before it gets pushed out, and just seeing that grow. Um, I'd love to ask, how are you approaching this? Like, what's your thought process, things like that?
Um, Yeah, so the main approach is we want to educate people at Developer DAO. So when people ask me what they should write about, I'm mostly about, yeah, write about the technology you like. Yeah, you used it, and you can explain people to build something interesting with it. That's my main approach to it. Then there are people who aren't technical in some way, and they still want to write something, and I usually don't know much about their work, yeah. So it's hard for me to find something in their line of work to write about, but something that's always there is like writing about their journey, like simply storytelling. Yeah, I've joined Developer DAO, I met cool people, we did this project or this hackathon or whatever, and then maybe I got a job of it, maybe I founded a project with some people and did a company with them, or anything, like more the experience of things, like when people go on the blog, they see, oh, there the people are getting jobs, they're getting friends, and they have a good time there, and they learn something, which might not always be technical things, but good vibes. These are the two main things, from my approach of writing, or helping people to write. um, yeah, and the other stuff is sponsored articles, where we don't have many of them, but some of our sponsors pay to publish articles at our blog, and these are basically like the technical articles our members write, just written by the company, and it's a bit like, um, you know, telling them, you shouldn't shield your shit. You should explain, why it's good and why people want to use it. Like for example, when I write a blog about IPFS, I'm not like, oh yeah, so it's really decentralized and it's this and that and it's so cool, and it's free and everything. I would use some project that can be built with this technology, but it could also be built with another technology, like an image uploader can be built with many, many technologies, but let's build it with that and see how it goes. Yeah. And the same goes for the sponsored blog posts, that we have to tell these people, hey, the people will like your stuff much more if you explain them how to build something tangible, and that could be interesting to build with your technology, and not just telling you that it's a technology that is very good and you should use it. Yeah.
No, absolutely. That's that's really important, right? Like I think there's so many blogs that I've read where, especially in the Web3 space, where there's just a bunch of companies that are shilling
Yeah.
versus this is like how you actually build with it, and getting to the the gritty nitty details of it so you can actually understand it, which is really important. The I know we so one thing I want to like wrap this up, and one thing that we didn't cover, especially talking about tech the entire time, I'd love to ask a bit more about you as a person. What do you enjoy doing, outside of tech, outside of the DAO? You have your cat around, so what's his or her name? Like, love to know a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So yeah, I have a cat. Her name is Jackie. She's 16 years old. Um, yeah, that's some of part of my life is caring about the cat and feeding her and cuddling her and getting screamed um, at by her. And yeah, that's some things. Otherwise, I'm training, like lifting weights and everything. For I have in my basement I have a home gym, and so when you get old and you are sitting all the time because your job is not very active, then suddenly you notice that things are starting to hurt that shouldn't hurt. And that's when I got into weightlifting, because I thought maybe that is something it's fun for me to do it, and I can do it on the side, like you lift a bit, you read a bit, you lift a bit, you read a bit, and it's not like you have to be in there. Like I did some jogging um, for cardio and everything, and it was like okay, so when I'm out there, I'm out there. I'm jogging half an hour or something, and I can't do anything else while I'm doing this. So lifting was a bit more like, okay, while I'm doing this, I can still read and think about other things. It's not mentally you know um, yeah yeah. And what I'm doing besides that, yeah, I'm traveling, meeting friends and my partners all over Germany. They don't live all with me. um, I have four partners, and they live in Germany, in different cities, and which is pretty good because I can see different places while visiting them. It's like a win-win, being in different, um, you know, different locations, and see a bit more of the world, because I'm not usually a traveling person. That's all, like I have to see the world or anything, but I really like it when I do it. It's like, the planning and everything and going outside, and I don't like this, but yeah, I want to meet my partner, so I'm traveling there, and it's really nice there. So actually, I would have gone there without my partner um, if I knew this this feeling. Yeah. Yeah, this is something I do pretty much, and that's where it's really helpful to be self-employed. Like I don't work that much right now. I'm working like, I don't know, 10 hours a week or something, and the rest of the time I have for this traveling purposes, um, which wouldn't be possible otherwise. Yeah, besides that, sometimes video games, like when I really need to shut down and just chill and everything. Video games is a big thing. Well, it was more a big thing back in the days than it's now, because now it's like programming is like video games, but with a benefit. It's like trying out new stuff and building things feels like I get the same feeling from playing video games. And so I stopped playing so much, and did programming for fun on the side, just to, because it felt the same and had some business benefits in the end.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One
So
thing
I think,
I wanted
yeah.
to ask too is, and we have to cover it before we end this, is the Web3 for course that you're working on.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so it's called Web3 from Zero.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about it so we can know how to kind of dive more into your mind of the Web3 space?
Um, yeah, it grew out of the idea that I had with React from Zero. It was like, okay, well, what can I do? Just import the React library and code in a text file and open it in the browser, and it works. Yeah, something like that is possible with Web3. You import your ethers JS file, and then you can connect to any RPC or whatever, and talk to the blockchain networks and everything. And I was like, hey, that's really interesting. All these courses I found online were like, the ultimate course about building this and that, and they all started with, and then you install this and this and this and this and this, and you're like 10 um, programming environments. They're all called the same. I don't know. This was a problem back in the days, and last year or something, that everything was a programming environment. Was like Ganesh, it's a programming environment. Hardhat, it's a pro. And I was like, well, what does this even mean? Why would they use the same term for everything they're using to develop? Was a big issue, and I thought, so hey, maybe we can do many of these things without installing anything. People just opening their browser, they read stuff, they look at images, they code stuff, and be done with it, and they learn something, and then they move to the next thing. And It's completely JavaScript based. I explained some solidity concepts to when people have to interact from the browser with the chain and the smart contracts. But I try to explain the front end of everything. Like the JavaScript, people know their JavaScript and they know how to load the library and they know how to open the browser, and they don't need more than that. And then we talk to them about, oh yeah, okay, now we will connect to this chain, and then you need to in the first part of the course, you don't even need a wallet or something. You just can connect and read stuff, because reading stuff from chain is free. All these RPCs are free to use, open to the public, permissionless, whatever you want to call it, and people can do the first lections without even installing anything. Yeah, and then when I moved to the second part, was like, oh, now I want to write something on chain, and then you need a wallet, and then I learned, oh, Ethers.js comes with an integrated programmable wallet, so you don't even need to install a wallet to write something on chain. You need to connect to a testnet, and you need to get the tokens to pay for your writings, but you don't need to install anything. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting that you can do so much and learn so much about this ecosystem from the JavaScript, from the browser, and learn it from the outside, and look at from your safe space to, oh, how is this chain, how does it work, and how do I get my data in and out, and everything. And this was the idea I had with that. And now I'm like in for like a year or something, like on and off writing, and yeah, I think I should finish it at one day, hopefully this year. Yeah, but you know how it is. Then you didn't write for like a year or something, a month or something, or 2 months, and you open the stuff and you're like, oh, what was I thinking when I wrote this? And it takes you some time to get into it again, and then you're like, I just want to write something. I don't want to get into it again. I want to read 10 things I wrote before, just to find out where I left. And yeah, that's a bit hard. That's why the course isn't finished yet. But yeah, I expect it to be finished in the next months.
No, that's awesome.
At least. Yeah.
No, I know that it's going to be incredibly helpful. I think you mentioned it earlier, but we're like so early that like the hard hat and ganache thing is so funny, because it's so true that everything is like an environment, everything is like a framework. There's so
Yeah.
many technologies, right? But it gets so confusing, especially for a beginner. Even if you're not a beginner and you know about these technologies, you don't know which one to use when. And I think
Yeah.
that's a big issue, right? So definitely going to be doing your course. That's super exciting. That's really good to hear. But yeah, overall, thank you so much for taking the time today to chat with me. Is there any way anyone can find you? So after you listen to this podcast and everyone's like, oh my God, Kay is amazing, how do they come find you? Whether it's Twitter or your website?
Usually the best way to find me, and the worst way, is Twitter, because I'm rather active there, but my username isn't that easy to pronounce. Like it's K4Y1S is my username on Twitter. So lead speak and everything from back in the days, yeah, when this was a cool thing. It still is. Yeah, this is the way where you find me the best. For companies, it's probably the best to just go to my website, kay.is. Yeah, it's had everything. I've did what I deemed important for companies that want to work with me, and in one place, so they can get a picture of what they are dealing with before they want to approach me. Yeah, and besides that, people can always DM me on Discord, the members of Developer DAO, of course.
Okay, sweet. That's incredible. Thank you so much. And to recap, it was an incredible opportunity to chat with you. And yeah, hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
I found it great too. Bye.